Hello there, welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content's Capital. I am Keaton Shaw. It's a beautiful day here in sweet TNT, and it's even more beautiful that traffic has been rather light this morning. Schools are closed, and so while all young people are celebrating some sort of reprieve during the school year, although the pui is also starting to bloom, so that means, if you're writing CIC or Cape, the next 2 weeks are into May, June. Good luck to you. But the adults are also really happy as well because it really eases them up a bit. Anyway, folks, this morning we are focusing on Tobago. Yesterday, our very last guest on AM Prime was Dr. Faith B. Israel. She is, of course, as you are aware, a member of the Tobago House of Assembly Executive, but she's also now a member of the Tobago People's Party, whose executive elections are to be held on June 9th. Now, we spoke about the mandate yesterday of the Tobago People's Party, and according to Dr. B. Israel, that has not changed much from when they won the election back in December 2021 under the umbrella of the PDP. But at the same time, whilst asking the question, what is the difference between the TPP and the PDP, Dr. B. Israel went after the individual who refers to themselves as the founder, owner, and political leader of the PDP, Watson Solomon Duke. Didn't call his name, but it seems as though you get the impression that the TPP is an annexation of Watson Duke. Now, joining me this morning to have that conversation and to provide deeper analysis, I welcome back to the program former National and Regional Youth Parliamentarian Chris Hossain. He's with us virtually. Good morning, Chris. Welcome back.
Good morning, Keaton, and a special good morning to Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you once again for having me back on AM Prime. I think Friday is possibly the day that I make an appearance, and so I'm grateful for the opportunity once again to comment on such an important issue we have discussing here today. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us as always and for your contribution. And we are pleased to welcome for the very first time, and hopefully not the last, he is a former Tobago House of Assembly Youth Assemblyman and a former National and Regional Youth Parliamentarian, Mr. Ajay Alain. And he is with us virtually. Good morning, Mr. Alain, and welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Keith, and thanks for the opportunity to share on something I take very personal. And I love Tobago, I love home, I love Trinidad and Tobago. So any opportunity I have to contribute to the development of this country, I would always be available.
And we are certainly most pleased for that. So, Ajay, since you've expressed such a deep passion for our state of affairs, especially when it comes to the island of Tobago, there's not much to be said about the Tobago People's Party at this point because there's not much that has been given to us about the Tobago People's Party. We are aware that internal elections are due to be held on June 9th, but that was only revealed within the last week or so. So what are your first impressions to this very much new party, a Tobago-centric party, that is?
Well, I believe it's something fresh, it's something new, and I think as a country, we should give them the opportunity to explore the options. Let's see what the new mandate. I think it's a fresh face. I expect to see some elders being there from a more supportive standpoint, but a more younger leadership, a more vibrant thrust to push Tobago forward is what I am expecting.
Mm-hmm. Now, we speak about younger leadership. We've advocated for fresh minds and a new way of thinking. That is only what is probably going to forge a new path forward for Trinidad and Tobago. But given what we've seen between the current THA administration, that relationship that exists, as well as the relationship that the government has with the THA, so it goes both ways, do you suppose that the TPP is really going to have the pull?
On the island here as well, because one of the things I have observed being a Tobago generally does not cover Tobago issues, in my view, adequately. So sometimes we are only 2 or 3 minutes, per se, in the national newscast. And when you walk on the ground here and you interact with Tobagonians here, you get a totally different idea as to exactly what's happening or how we actually feel. It's so much so where at times we believe that sometimes the media tend to be a lot more against the actual administration here on the ground in Tobago. So they may cover one story and we may decide, you know what, we're going to drive to see what's happening, or we're going to physically see where the issue lies, or we're going to speak with the individuals involved. And then you tend to get a whole different perspective on exactly what the matter is. And the chief, in spite of his challenges and in spite of the issues, he still commands the support of majority of Tobagonians. He just may not go public with it.
Well, Chris, I bring you in here, and Ajay made a very pertinent point. The Chief Secretary, he's been very vocal. He's spoken, and it seems as though, to a great extent, the impression that one gets is that he stands up to what could be referred to at times as the big bad wolf, that is central government. We're not necessarily deeming it that way, but that is how it comes across when he is speaking about that relationship. So the Tobago People's Party finds itself in a position where, as Ajay said, it might not be so publicly known, but they still have the majority of support.
Well, this is a very important time that we are in Trinidad and Tobago, especially Tobago, where you can have the Fari-led administration, now TPP, not just win in such a historic way, but, and I want to, there's a play that I looked on. The symbol of the party is, I believe, an anchor. And I recalled when the ship would have been tilted, when there was that sort of disagreement between Mr. Augustine and, of course, Mr. Duke. And so looking on, observing, immediately one would think that, all right, that's it there. PNM is going to retain the THA in the next election. They cannot come back from this. This is it for them, politically. And such a young, and we must understand that Mr. Augustine is quite young for politics, but he would have been able, and his team would have been able, to anchor the ship, so much so, and I think that I may share the same sentiment that Ajay shares, is that what I'm hearing and what we're seeing is that many persons, they do have confidence in Mr. Augustine and his team. And what is very interesting, and what stands out to me, and well, I live in Trinidad, and what I can see from here is that he leads by ensuring that he speaks with the people. Almost every week he's out having consultations, and so you get the sense that it's not a matter of just wanting to lead. It's an understanding of duty to office and representation. And I think really with his track record so far in his political career, he has demonstrated that he's willing to be humble, he's willing to be vulnerable, but most importantly, he's willing to listen to the people. And I think we're in a very interesting time, and I hope the more mature politicians are looking on and taking a few notes from Mr. Augustine.
Well, Ajay, I bring you back into the point that Chris just made there. It seems as though that relationship between Mr. Augustine, and by the way, he was asked, is it Augustine or Augustine? And it's still kind of cloudy there at times, I just say. But the relationship that he has with the man on the ground in Tobago seems to be a bit more personal as compared to the relationship between central government and the people of Tobago. And I say that based off of what you said, Ajay, where at times it seems as though Tobago is forgotten or sidelined. But I'm curious to know, in your experience, Ajay, I mean, the Tobago House of Assembly, the People's National Movement Tobago Council, held it for 18 years before the PDP won the election on December 9th, 2021. What was the relationship like between the THA for those 18 years and the people of Tobago versus currently and the people of Tobago? And some might argue the answer is obvious given that election results, but tell us about your experience and what you know of.
No, well, I will see it as the saying or this notion in this piece.
I think sorry, Ajay, I think we lost... Ajay, my apologies. I think we lost you there just for a moment. If you wouldn't mind telling us your response again.
Yeah, you hear me clearer now?
Yes, a lot better.
Yeah, so there is this notion in this space that you would hear a PNM central government and a PNM. While I would not say that there was no development, however, when you look at the amount of development is where we're beginning to see the challenge. Because we all know the PNM has a status quo and a structure, and no one there breaks or challenges that structure. So you would find where even Tobago leaders or chief secretaries might want to push more Tobago development. Once a decision comes from the Prime Minister in Trinidad, we do not dare challenge that decision publicly. So, and as a result of that, we see the result, and I think that is what caused a major change across the island, because Tobagonians were looking for more. We wanted a little bit more. We're not asking for the whole market, but we wanted a little more over that period of time, and I don't think we got what we wanted from them. So we decided to make a change.
Chris, an election result of that magnitude brought shockwaves, I suppose, to everyone who was viewing on election night. I think even to a certain extent, the PDP were at times just a bit shocked. I was there on election night, and as results were coming in, everybody was like, whoa, you know. So that magnitude of an election win, I suppose, speaks volumes to the level of frustrations that existed in Tobago. But the question is, Chris, is the TPP, or rather the current executive, still riding off of that election win in 2021?
I think yes, but also going into the general election or the next THA election, I think they have now a track record. If we listen and what we know, based off of the last platform meeting with Mr. Farley, he was able to articulate a clear argument as to, look what we did so far in just 2 years. He was able to articulate, and he could have speak from health, infrastructure, education. I mean, and you know, when you listen to him, there was some real accomplishments. And of course, he contrasts. And I mean, yes, I know your political platform is your political platform, but it really spoke volumes for the accomplishments, despite not just fighting the opponent that would have been the PNM, that is the central government. Not just fighting, but he would have also been fighting Mr. Duke as his opponent as well. And so far, I think, as I said, he and his team, they have been able to anchor the ship. Now, would this be able to spill over into a next election and ensuring that they retain their seats? I think they would retain the majority in the THA. I don't know if it would be in its full capacity. I will not be surprised if they're able to retain the full 13 seats. I will not be surprised at that, based off of what we have seen so far.
But before we even get to that point, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, general elections are due before THA elections next year.
Right.
And,
yes.
and the TPP have indicated that they are going for the two constituencies in Tobago.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think they have, again, proven to Tobago what they have to offer as an organization. And I know there's a confusion for some, because, you know, in approaching this topic, I was speaking, as I said, to a few persons within our little youth parliamentarian circle. And there's sometimes an issue with understanding PDP, TPP. And what I took from the issue between Mr. Duke and Mr. Farley, and it is important that we discuss it. Mr. Augustine and his executive were looking for a political home. And some of their supporters were also looking for a political home. And very quickly, Farley would have been able to create that home, I think build the infrastructure, furnish the home, and put his people inside of that home. And I think in politics right now, many persons are searching for that home, even in Trinidad. When we look at the way that our political parties have been existed most recently, and I've been on the show before, we have spoken about the accommodation and third parties, and so people are looking for that political identity, that home. What is that message, that policy position, the principles, that kind of thing. And I think he would have been able to formulate that. Going into a general election, I think he stands a really, really good chance because he has a track record so far. And he seemed to understand the Tobago politics, and as he would rightly put it, the Tobago-ness of Tobago. Also, I think it's noteworthy that he has a quite an interesting team, a good team. I mean, it's a team of persons that in their own right, we can speak to their track record and before politics and even speak to their track record currently. I mean, we go through the list from Zorisha Hackett as Secretary of Education. You have Dr. Faith V. Israel, you have Sitika, or you have Tashia Greensbot. So, and each one of them, in my view, may be able to even be a candidate for the general election. And I have a feeling he may well put up one of his councillors. I see RJ is laughing.
I'm curious to know though RJ's point, because RJ really started to crack up when you were speaking there. RJ.
No, well, I wouldn't let the cat out of the bag, but the word on the ground is the Tobago East and the Tobago West candidates are stalwarts, and I can, from as far as I know currently, they are not any member of the current executive. But when those names are announced, if those are the persons, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a next runaway election. Because the names that we are hearing coming up in the Tobago space, for Tobago East and Tobago West, I mean, they are stalwarts. And if I'm to push it a little further, the both of them have a good track record in the Ministry of National Security.
If I may, I want to interject here on this, because I think there's something very important that we would always forget. Yes, the opponent politically for Farley would be the People's National Movement because they are the incumbent, right? But I have noticed that Minister Kojo Lewis and Minister Webster Roy, they have found a way in their tenure, and this is their second term serving as not just a lower house MP, but also serving as cabinet ministers. They would have been able to almost divorce their brand from PNM Port of Spain. I've noticed very carefully throughout the past 2 terms, they have tried, and they've been very careful, and they have tried to divorce the brand from who they are as a politician in Tobago to what the PNM stands for in Trinidad and how they speak and their messaging and that kind of thing. You know, so there's a little bit of political savviness with them, especially Minister Kojo Lewis. But I also think the political, animal that is Mr. Farley is right now like a political titan that he has demonstrated to us in this country. I mean, you cannot dismiss how he would have come back from that PDP, I would say, debacle.
Chris, can I interject?
Of course, yes.
What I think we had to look at is the Tobago West seat is going to become the battleground because MP Kojo Lewis has a very strong base on the ground, and she's a very cordial individual. She's somebody we could speak to and feel very welcome and very warm-hearted. And I think what the current chief has on him is, and from personal experience, you could see man call and say Farley or could openly speak to him anyway, hail him out in the middle of the road, and you would receive a greeting. And you don't generally find that with a lot of politicians. So even when we speak to that personal relationship, you could talk to him on a personal basis and you would feel tied to him just because of the way he carries about himself as a politician. You don't ever get a major disjointed feeling from him. You can meet him in any function, he will touch everybody before he gets to that podium, and want to speak to everybody after. And it goes across the board for all of these elected members. You meet them anywhere, hail them out, they're going to answer you. I mean, sometimes it's challenging. Like a person's or their family members and members of their personal team from time to time would say, it's hard to travel with the boss. Because if you go to a function, the boss has to speak with every individual who wants to speak with them. And sometimes you may even have your own personal challenges, but they will teach you to set that aside for the greater good of their people.
Okay, so as much as we're saying that he is a politician, he still has that human connection, because that is something that you often see disappearing from a politician's grace when they get deeper and deeper into their team. But we're going to have to take a break in a couple minutes. But very quickly, Ajay, the point that you just made there about Tobago West being a battleground because of Shamva Cujo-Lewis's pull that she still has. What about Tobago East and Ayanna Webster Roy?
That, in our view, we think there is a greater possibility of that seat being the swing seat in the upcoming election. Simply because there are suspicions that MP Webster Roy would not be recontesting, and that kind of leaves a political vacuum. As I'm saying, he just put in the committee. Not say yet, but the suspicion would be the middle of his, particularly in that space. And as we're saying, the wood on the ground.
Ajay, I think we've lost you for most of what you're saying. I'll tell you what, let's take the break. We're going to come back to your response after the break. But just bear this in mind as well. What you're hearing on the ground happening in Tobago, I'm hearing on the ground here as well that Ayanna Webster Roy has a relationship with the current PNM administration. Is not what it was when she first entered office a few years ago. So just bear that in mind as well. So let's take a break here on the program. When we return, we're going to get Ajay's response, but then we're going to go into another issue, and that is autonomy. And that is something that Tobagonians have been fighting for. Has the current administration forgotten about autonomy? Is consultation overtaking the process of pushing for autonomy? Have they failed in their deliverance of autonomy? Because bear in mind, the campaign starts now, ladies and gentlemen. But we'll get more from Chris and from Ajay after these messages. We'll be right back.
Fellow citizens, our Constitution is a supreme law that safeguards our rights and provides rules for the functioning of government and those in authority. Serving the needs of the public and improving the quality of life of citizens begins with the country's Constitution. The Constitution should guarantee accountability in governance and public service efficiency to us, the people. The National Advisory Committee on Constitutional Reform wants to hear from you on possible improvements to our Constitution. Read the Constitution on the website and submit recommendations by April 15th to constitutionalreform2024.gov.tt.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show
have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. We're focusing on Tobago this morning. Just before we get into that, a very important topic of autonomy, because we're speaking about the TPP heading into the next election and the PNM Tobago Council, of course. Ajay, I want to come back to you with that response. You spoke about Shamfu Kujo Lewis's pull in Tobago West, but you were responding in respect to Ayana Webster Roy in Tobago East. And we lost you there for a bit, so if you'd just like to continue where you left off.
What I was saying is the word on the ground here is that we don't believe that MP Webster Roy would be recontesting a seat. And just simply by that, it's creating a type of vacuum, if that's the best word to use. So it's creating an opening politically. So it's like to have two newcomers battling in the same space, if that's how it plays out. And it will make it very, very interesting to see how Tobago East go. Tobago East might become the more critical seat for the general election.
Tobago East has become more of the swing seat, in other words, in the general election to come.
General.
Okay, so it's good to know that, because like I said, you hear things on the ground here, at least here in Trinidad. What I'm hearing on the ground is that there is some falling out of favour between Ayana Webster and the current executive of the People's National Movement. But that being said, I cannot confirm that. I am not substantiating that as truth. I'm simply saying that is something that has been spoken of through the wind, through the bushes, through the grapevine. So just bear that in mind. Chris, coming back to this conversation about autonomy, I spoke to Dr. Faith B. Israel yesterday on AM Prime. We spoke about autonomy as well. And as that of their mandate, that is something that they campaigned strongly on back in 2021. Now, here's where there's a twist in the tale. Watson Solomon Duke was the individual who was going to lead the charge on the part of the teacher executive for autonomy. In fact, that's one of the reasons why there was an office that was set up here in Trinidad for pushing that notion of autonomy. Dr. Faith Bezra has said very much so that that is still on the agenda. In fact, they've been having a lot of public consultations. They've been speaking to Tobagonians, telling them, let us know what are your concerns, what it is you think Tobago needs, and what direction you want Tobago to be heading in. But, as I said, the elections are due next year, and we have not necessarily seen more action rather than consultation. You think this is going to be a stain on the part of the current executive heading into the campaign?
I think clear, concise communication will that should not interfere with them and their campaign. Why I say that? Because the Tobago Autonomy Bill is really passed in Parliament. It is central, it is in Trinidad that happens, in our Parliament in Trinidad. Of course, the suggestions that at the time would have been, I believe, the PDP at that time, if I'm not mistaken, when they would have sat on the Joint Select Committee to even consult with Parliament as to what they thought autonomy should look like. Mr. Farley said he would not have been satisfied. Dr. B. Israel, they also said they're not satisfied with what the bill is in its current form. The reason for that is that they were looking at more of a devolution of power, sort of a power sharing autonomy, something like what occurs in the UK and Wales and Ireland and that kind of thing. And I don't really want to get into detail into it, but that is what they were more so looking towards.
Well, there's also St. Kitts and Nevis right here in the Caribbean, which is probably,
correct.
yeah, the more, yeah.
Correct. So it's not uncommon for the Commonwealth. And so it's really the Parliament. And I think the parliamentarians, in my view, I have not heard a clear, concise, solid argument that really represented the Farley-led TPP or even the PDP at that time stance, position as it related to autonomy. I don't think I was able to see that in the debate properly. I would not have been able to see that. So it's really, I think if anyone that this would fall on, it would really be the Tobago MPs. I think they more so would have to account to the population as to why it is they contributed the way they did in the lower house for the Tobago Autonomy Bill.
Ajay, this situation now with respect to autonomy and the bill within Parliament, I get what Chris is saying in respect to the fact that it's more of a central government issue rather than a THA issue, but do you think the THA has been pushing hard enough beyond just consultations?
My position on autonomy is a little bit, I want to say different. I think the approach to it has not been reasonable, it has not been what's the political correct term? I think it just has been different over the years. I did some research in a couple years back, and I was going through Hansard, and we know Hansard doesn't lie. And every time the autonomy bill gets to the Parliament, you hear the words of secession. And I'm of the view, majority of Tobagonians does not want secession. It's a term used by Trinidadians, quote unquote, who I love, and it's used to scare them away from having the conversation. And it couldn't just start from a place of what are we willing to compromise on. Because the only way we will get the autonomy bill to pass is we have to be willing to make some compromises. And I think that's where the whole downfall is one. Two, the issue of education and educating Trinidadians and Tobagonian history is also an issue I think we need to highlight. Because too many of our experienced or well-schooled politicians are dying. And when you sit and you share with you the experiences over the years and being able to govern Tobago, then you begin to see the importance of independence of government or autonomy. Because a simple thing as allowing an airline to come into the island, Tobago is heavily tourism-based, a lot more so than Trinidad. And you have persons in Trinidad who are telling you, they didn't ask me about this, and I'm not telling you because they didn't ask. Without even examining the documents, without examining the process. So it's stifling the growth of the island. There's also a part in the THA that I want to make mention of. It's section number 25, which reads, without prejudice to section 75, one of the Constitution, the Assembly shall, in relation to Tobago, be responsible for the formulation and implementation of policies in respect of matters set out in the 5th schedule. And when we were taught how to treat with it, it basically says Parliament can overturn any decision made in the Tobago House of Assembly because they have general direction and control over the island. And then I'm saying, why not amend it to have a conversation? Why can't it be after a consultation with the Chief Secretary or the minority leader? I can be here in Tobago and a decision made in Port of Spain. that does not necessarily apply to what I have to do or what I am facing in front of me, and I just have to legally comply. I mean, that is unreasonable for any individual.
I think the difficulty lies as well in the fact that the Tobago House of Assembly is seen as the local government of Tobago. You know, it's essentially what it seems to be, what it's deemed as. You've got an executive within the THA that's of one political party. Then you've got the two representatives, Tobago East, Tobago West, of another political party, that is central government. It ties back in, by the way, to what you started the conversation with, Ajay, and that is this TPP executive seems to have stood up to the status quo. But those who were there for the 18 years before could never do that. They could never actually stand up to the status quo. They could never actually stand up to the directions that they were being told to go into. So it comes to that as well. But the issue is, do you think the THA should be represented within the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago? And that is an argument that has been put on the table by the current THA executive.
I agree with it. I mean, sometimes I may take the controversial position and say, Tobago East should go one way, Tobago West should go the other. So we have a perspective on both sides of both islands of the Parliament. And now as we're discussing constitutional reform, I think we should have something in place, whether it be an ex-officio member of the Parliament or something, be a THA representative. Because many times I often wonder, is it that when MP Joe or MP West Surrey sits in the cabinet and they argue for Tobago, simply because of the numbers, the ideas and the initiatives are rejected? I mean, it is a question sometimes we have to ask. Simply because it doesn't seem as if the two Tobago seats become important at the cabinet or at the discussion-making level, but we only become critical at election time. And history would show you that any progress Tobago has gotten in terms of self-government and autonomy, it usually comes via a coalition, and more so a UNC-led coalition.
Chris, what are your thoughts on that? You know, considering that the possibility that there would not be a Tobago East and a Tobago West seat in Parliament, that the THA is the representative in Parliament on the part of Tobago?
Well, I think when we, even this question, answering it, we are admitting that the both, this is an admittance, us here saying that both Tobago representatives would have been ineffective in representing Tobagonians. That's really what we're saying. Because if we are saying that the THA should be represented, it is because we're saying the THA right now is not represented. And that's quite unfortunate, and it's a sad day to know that we have a Tobagonian Prime Minister and we have two Tobagonian MPs. I believe the President of the Senate is also Tobagonian, and the THA still does not feel represented. And it is unfortunate because they do command the majority in the last, I say, litmus test, which should have been the THA election in Tobago. And I think that based on this, what I just said, I think that can be enough to shake the ground in the next general election from the PNM towards the TPP.
So I want to bring up something that is a bit, I'd like to say controversial in this sense, but we have to talk about it. Chris, you just raised it. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is Tobagonian. Nigel de Freitas is Tobagonian. Ajay, you on the ground in Tobago, I'm curious to know, what do you hear in respect to Tobagonians' thoughts about Dr. Keith Rowley and his relationship with Tobago and Tobagonians?
I want to say a little bit 50-50, because some persons seem as a pseudo-Tobagonian, some persons seem as a convenient Tobagonian. One of the things I remember, he made mention of it in a political meeting in Mason Hall sometime during the year last year. And he says he faced the polls represent Tobago once, and he was defeated at the polls by it. Tobagonians are some strange people politically. Usually once they reject you politically once, that's the end of your political career in the Tobago space, usually. And sometimes we are tempted to believe because we didn't vote for him, he treats us that way. Because he's not the MP for Tobago East or Tobago West, he treats us as if, well, yeah, just give on that. Some people feel that way concerning him, and the person who would say, is a Ari boy, so oh God, I don't mind that, no. Give her my knees or left arm. But it's kind of contradiction, and even the way he speaks to Tobago issues and the way he treats. I think he would come to Tobago and tell people, sit down. I mean, how can you come to Tobago and tell a certain chief secretary to sit down? Tobago and Sambana, we don't speak to people like that generally over here. So I think it's a rare catch-21 in terms of the way we feel about him.
You think he's lost touch with Tobago?
And all happened.
You think
Tobagonians, the residents were asking to meet with the Prime Minister.
No, actually, let me just interject you for a moment there, right? Because politics is one thing, and there is a political agenda. We're not denying that. But do you think, generally speaking, Keith Rowley has lost touch with Tobago? Has lost touch with his whom?
People say 100, I might say 102% he has lost. Because we don't feel that. It's as I was saying before, the chief could walk and he could say, hey, fine, you but he could say, hey, where's the scene, and he can have a casual conversation. You don't get that from the Prime Minister. I mean, he might go and play cricket in Milton Hall, which where he's originally from and where he has a nice farm and all the niceties. But to like walk the streets the way the chief would, we don't seek from him. And it's not because we don't love him, we love him as a Tobagonian. We love it, but you have to be able to also face reproach. I mean, we have reproached our chief secretary on several scenarios. We don't think he did something right. We will see Tobagonians will get vocal and will say, Chief, we don't like what you're doing or we don't like what is happening. And whether the chief like it or not, there are times where he will humble himself, and there are times when he will ignore, and that's just it. But with this current Prime Minister, once you oppose him, he becomes a particular type of animal as described by one of our previous Prime Ministers. And I mean, his actions have been only validating statements made by one of the greatest Prime Ministers Trinidad and Tobago has ever seen.
Chris, let me come back to you with that point that RJ has made. He says Tobagonians are rather strange in their voting patterns because if Tobagonians react you once, that usually means it's the end of your political career, in Tobago. That being said, we can argue that Tobagonians are not tribal in their voting patterns as compared to Trinidadians. Right now, we're one nation, but two islands. So we must understand the personalities that exist within both islands. Tobagonians are not necessarily tribal voters. And that, I'm wondering, is where the TPP is also going to find a lot of its strength. Bear in mind, we've said a lot already this morning. We've put the arguments on the table. The Chief Secretary has listed all that he has achieved. But Tobagonians not being tribal voters as compared to Trinidadian is a huge factor for the TPP.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you would notice that in the PNM's campaign, they try to bring that into the Tobago space in their politics. They tried it. They tried in the last campaign to say the PDP were friends of the UNC and tried to bring that into the campaign almost to a dog whistle, I would say, and to instill this fear of almost division. So I do think that I noticed that was a very interesting play used in the campaign for the last stage. But of course, it's a big one. And said no, they did not. They rejected that type of politics, and they rejected it overwhelmingly. But absolutely, Tobago's political dynamic in Trinidad is completely different. And I think Tobagonians also, as RJ said, they could love you and still not vote for you. So that's an important pointer. In Trinidad, we tend to be a bit, we could be haters sometimes. And maybe we need to work on ourselves. We need to work on ourselves with that. But with Tobagonians, I've noticed they're very focused in how they vote. You can't tie them up. You cannot type a Tobagonian. That is one thing. You can't tiff their head. You can't do that.
Political history a little bit. I don't know if much of you guys would remember when we had the 12-0 or the red wash.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened prior to the red wash, you'd have seen where the UNC's partnership with the Tobago Organization of the People top was beginning to get very close. And we saw what Tobagonians deem as an invasion. We had the leader of the then UNC, Miss Bissessa, leader of the opposition, coming to Tobago and freeing us like rain. And I mean, Tobagonians had it out. They took all that they could have gotten, and then we saw the result. Marshall came to Tobago and performed up at Market Square. And I mean, I was present too. The jump up was nice. But the following day, Tobagonians showed you don't come and buy me out. We voted for sale. We would eat you out and still vote for you. And one of the arguments we would always hear coming to create a level of division is any political party in Tobago space that's opposed to the PNM is friends of the UNC. And I mean, it's a ridiculous argument to make. I mean, I'm flabbergasted by it. I mean, I'm blown away, and they consistently use it over and over again. Like, you know, the money that they used to send us to school via the GATE program, we went to school to take the GATE money we like, and we strip it. So we don't have the mind to realize that, yeah, we're playing the same game over and over again. And I don't think that we be wise enough now to say, change your tactics, pal.
Ajay's contribution to the program this morning has been phenomenal, and it doesn't end there, ladies and gentlemen. Chris, thanks for being with us. We're going to pause. We're going to take a pause for a bit there, but when we return, the conversations will continue, because there's one more part of the current state of Tobago politics that we have to focus on, and that is other parties that exist. You've got the PDP that still exists, by the way. Yes, it may come as a surprise, but it still exists. You've also got the IDA, the Innovative Democratic Alliance. You've got Tobago Forwards. There are a couple other parties as well. But we'll get into such conversation shortly. We'll be right back.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sierra Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Public's interest being protected with the seizure of unregistered items. Pipara mud volcano is still active. Regionally, American citizen killed in boating accident in the Bahamas. Now for the details. Health Minister Terrence Dayal Singh assured the public of their protection with the seizure of various unregistered items. Addressing the Parliament, Minister Dayal Singh outlined the items confiscated by the task force established in 2018. He emphasized that the action was not aimed at specific retailers or wholesalers, but was intended to safeguard the population from unregistered products. The Health Minister said pharmacies should do the right thing by following due process and buying items from certified wholesalers. The Pipara mud volcano is presently showing activity, and citizens have been warned against venturing near the site due to increased pressure building at the volcano's vents and fissures. Councillors for Piparo, San Pedro, Tabaquis, Henry Awang is currently on site, along with the Disaster Management Unit of the Kuva-Tabaquita Paro Regional Corporation. The DMU reports that the volcano has been releasing gases once every 90 seconds. Rumblings were also reported to have been coming from the volcano since last week. In regional news, an American tourist tragically lost his life in a boating incident in the Bahamas. According to police reports, the 67-year-old man was part of a diving excursion with family members at Winding Bay, Eleuthera, when he was struck by a boat around 4:25 p.m. Despite efforts to administer CPR until the arrival of medical assistance, the victim, who sustained severe upper body injuries, was pronounced dead by a doctor at the scene, as stated by the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Well, that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on WhatsApp Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
WhatsApp Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
Let's go to the last part.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning. Chris Hossain and Angela Lena with us virtually. But as I mentioned, we're going to speak about the PDP now. And in doing so, we have the political leader and the founder of the PDP, Mr. Watson Duke, who joins me in the studio. Good morning, Mr. Duke, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, wesn, and good morning, Tobago and Trinidad.
Well, I like that, Tobago and Trinidad.
Well, they always make sure show love home first, right? Show love home first.
Mr. Duke, thanks for joining us this morning. The PDP and the focus of the PDP in the year ahead, and the election campaign starts now. What is the PDP's aims and its targets for 2025? Whether it be the general election and the Tobago House of Assembly election?
Yes, the PDP aim is one, it is total governance. You cannot change the life of a man unless you have total governance. Total governance does not mean governance in a vacuum. It means participatory governance on clear policies so everyone knows what he or she is doing. We're talking clockwork here now. Mm-hmm. Every part has a particular role to play, and so only when we have something like that, a country could be transformed beyond the expectations of former parliamentarians or former politicians. We have seen where the PNM was the only party in this country to have had total governance or total control, where they control the national executive and the local government executive and the THA executive. And what did they do? Nothing with it. I think it's a lapse of judgment on their part. They have a lot of academia enrolled with the party, but very little people with the sense that is needed for governance. There's a particular sense needed for governance. A mechanic needs a particular type of knowledge. An eye surgeon needs a particular type of knowledge. Wherever you go, a pilot needs a particular type of knowledge. Even a garbage collector needs a particular type of knowledge. Politicians who are leading a government requires a particular knowledge. Not that hogwash I hear them belching out on a daily basis. It's totally irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. What is that sense that you speak of that you need for governments? Could you elaborate on that? Because you're quoted as saying the PDP is a unifying political organization, not part of any political semi-demi.
That's right, that's right. People are talking unity in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's really smoke and mirrors. It's not genuine, and the people outside can see it. People outside are looking things in a realistic way. They don't look at the fluff. The fluff and the old talk don't fool them anymore. They look straight at the core issues. If we're talking unity, there must be unity around policies, not around winning an election. Because if we win, and we now have to unify insofar as governance, what are the policies that we're going to govern on? Am I going to use my policies to govern and you use your policies? No. There must be one harmonious policies. And so if there's going to be any real unity, there must be almost a compromise from one political organization to the next, or a joint compromise, where they say these are the issues, there must be equal respect, because we're talking both parties would have their leadership caucus and they will have their following, etc. So unless those things are genuine and not superficial, it will be smoke and mirrors, simi-dimi.
What do you think of the issues currently in ICNTT that we're not unified on?
All the issues. There is no one single issue where politicians are unified upon. None, not even crime. You know, for crime, for some, crime is the gun crime. If that reduces to 10, we have done it. Mm-hmm. For others, crime may be other types of crime, less violent crimes, house break-ins, etc. But how do we deal with crime holistically? Is it the symptoms you want to treat? Or is it the root cause, the things from which crime springs? And if you're dealing from that, the source of crime, the root cause, then we have to start from the home, from the families. Then we have to go into the schools. And there have to be more robust and strong programs there, because crime is a generational problem. It is not a problem of adults.
Well, I think we have an understanding of your focus and the PDP's focus heading into next year. Chris, I think I saw your hand raised for a question to Mr. Duke.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Duke.
Good morning, Chris.
I have a question. Of course, the PDP would have campaigned for the THA election heavily on Tobago's autonomy. And the position, the political position, the party's position of the PDP, I think it was clearly understood about autonomy. Recently, you said that it's about self-determination, not autonomy. So is it that your position has changed? And if so, can you explain the difference to us for us to better understand what is the position of yourself and the party that is the PDP?
Thank you so much, Chris, for that gift in the form of a question. There is a slight difference between autonomy and self-determination. Autonomy is a part of self-determination, but self-determination has more overarching or far-reaching effects. That's a lot of words. The average man on the ground wouldn't understand that. So let me tell you it in a more simple format. Self-determination means that Tobago has all its rights, all, 100% of its rights, to do as it pleases, when it pleases, how it pleases. Autonomy means that you have to get it from somewhere. It's a measure of your right, not your full rights. So we have gotten some autonomy already in 1980 to form a Tobago House of Assembly. In 1996, the House of Assembly were given more autonomy, 33 areas of which to kind of govern a kind of way, right? And a little budget in 2020, just 2020, 2021, they're around there. Sorry. In 2000, 2001, they got a little budget from the dispute resolution, which saying part of the national budget, a fixed part must now go to that. So there's autonomy along the way. But when we say we want self-determination, we are talking about four principal things. One, the right of Tobagonians within Tobago, not outside of Tobago, within Tobago, to decide for themselves without any external influence on one's political status. I'll come back to that. Two, it's social. Three, it's economical. And four, it's cultural development. Those are four pillars of creating a governance model anywhere you go in the world. Political status refers to either of three things. One, independence, total independence. As we have Barbados, Jamaica. Tobago can choose to become independent of Trinidad totally. Two, we can remain in a symbiotic relationship or a joint relationship, or what we call an interdependent relationship, Trinidad and Tobago. Or we can decide to have an association as the Eastern Caribbean states or the Organization of America, or better put, the European Union. They share a dollar, they share a parliament, but they govern their countries independently different. If they all agree on a law, the law then affects all of those persons within the union. We could decide of any of those three models: independent, interdependent, or association. We have not had the chance to choose either of that. What they are now attempting to do in this constitution is to hoodwink us and give us a position that we have not agreed to. They're trying to force Tobagonians to decide on an interdependent relationship that allows them only a measure of rights. And so in the constitutional amendment bill, which speaks to Tobago self-government, they are not speaking about self-determination within the confines of the amendment, the only way that comes is the introduction that Tobago would be independent, Trinidad would be independent, meaning Tobago will be an island, Trinidad will be an island of equal status. That's the preamble. But when you get into it, they begin to legislate for us the laws that we can make and we can't make, what we can do and what we cannot do. That shows that we are still a ward of Trinidad. I did employment law. And one of the things I could say to you about employment law, the test of any employee, any single employee, is the conduct of the employer to the employee. So if you want to know whether an employee is permanent or not, even though you're on contract, if you want to, that employee is really permanent, how the employer treats that employee is the real contract. All right? That says you are permanent and you're not on contract. It says you have these benefits, and these benefits are associated with permanent people. Yeah? So how Trinidad treats Tobago will determine whether we are ward or not. Within the Constitutional Amendment Bill, Tobago Self-Governance Bill, we continue to be treated as one on, or as a ward, or who's on contract for employment terms, so to speak. So we are saying we want all our rights. We want to determine in Tobago whether we want to have this interdependent relationship. And from my perspective, Tobago wants to have that interdependent relationship, Trinidad and Tobago. I think we are better off like that. All right? However, we must reserve the right at all times to say to Trinidad, we don't like how you are treating us, and we want to leave this relationship. It means that within the body, within the confines of the, with the sections and articles, etc., on the policies of the Constitution, there must be an escape clause that Tobago can use and say, look, we are going to draw on our right to now leave this union, whether it be by referendum or vote in the House of Assembly. We must have that right. And until we have that right, we would not have the right of self-determination.
Chris, any follow-up questions?
I saw Ajay, he raised his hand, so I want to...
Ajay.
Good morning, Mr. Duke.
Good morning, Ajay.
We have seen an unusual... You hear me clearly, right?
Very clearly.
Go on, Ajay, we can hear you.
Yes, so we have seen an unusual rise in crime in Tobago. Do you mind sharing what is the PDP's plan to begin to treat with crime on the island? Is it that we're going to see Mr. Duke making school tours, well, just as he usually is, and influencing the younger guys to aspire to high heights just as you have achieved?
The main effort any government could make towards solving crime is to be serious towards crime. Neither the Chief Secretary nor the Prime Minister has taken a serious approach to crime. When something is serious, it becomes the only thing you think about until you have it under control. Anyone who suffers from sugar, pressure, or any kind of a sickness, that's their problem when the day comes. When the day comes, it is to get that thing under control. If you're a cancer survivor, you're a cancer patient, your main problem when the day comes is to get that cancer under control, because you measure your life in terms of the life of that thing. However, politicians feel that they could win elections without solving crime. And that's our problem. That's our problem right there. They must give crime 100% of their attention. And as someone who's going to enter both the THA and Tobago and general elections, perhaps to govern this country, because the PDP is looking for total governance, I would take crime seriously. Crime will become #1 priority. The first responsibility of any government, any single government, even the government in the bush, even the government who is primitive, it is to secure and protect its people. That's the first thing. Hence, when we look at long-time cartoons, you will see the kingdom always have a big wall around it, and the people live inside. They feel protected. They must feel protected. Only when people feel protected, then you could administer good governance. So that's my first thing I will do, make them feel protected. And when you land down and they recognize that's your focus, and you're not bobbing and weaving and going on excursional about the world, flying here and there and talking stupid talk, then they'll recognize that this man is focused on it. And sooner or later, they will have to flee and go in the recesses of our country and hide.
Mr. Duke, coming out of the local government election from Trinidad, what are some of the lessons that you think the PDP would have learned that they're going to intend on course correcting to face the electorates for the general election?
Well, I want to say we learn any lessons. I just want to just say I thank all those who supported us at the local government elections. I think it was to make a footprint in Trinidad and to let our colleagues in Trinidad know that we are not about a separatist governance. We don't believe in separating Tobago from Trinidad. And so when I came down to Trinidad, I made a bold move and said, look, I'm involved in your business now. I'm interested in your business now. I'm interested in salvation here in Trinidad also, as I am in Tobago. It's a very bold and interesting move for me, and I wanted to say I love that move. Because before that, any party that remains in Tobago will all be seen as a clannish party, as a tribal party, as a party who doesn't fully understand the entire country. And if we're going to be moving in step, then we all need to agree that, hey, this is good for both of us as a people, and this is not good for us as a people. So we need to talk and have more conversations, and this is what it was all about, coming down from Tobago to Trinidad to start a conversation. It was a very good conversation for me, and one I enjoy, and one that I think I look forward to serving the people of Trinidad and Tobago and Trinidad sooner or later.
Ajay, I think I saw your hand. Yeah.
I know you spoke about unity at the beginning of your presentation this morning.
Yeah.
Is it that you are indicating that the PDP is interested in coalitions and partnering with political entities, whether it be both in Trinidad and in Tobago?
Well, put it this way. The world has moved ahead from this solo type of leadership. Any leader has to be amenable to working with others, because the entire country is made up of different people, different ethnicities, different social classes, academic classes, and we have to work with people. So at all points in time, I'm willing to work with everybody, but not anybody. Yeah?
Does that mean you would be willing to also work with the current THA?
Well, as I said, I'm willing to work with everybody, but not anybody. It's something for you to figure out.
Mr. Duke, so of course the country is looking on as it's quite early on a Friday morning, 7:25, but I'm sure they're locked in. And so persons, if they are interested in looking at your party's constitution to see the founding principles, how does the party operate, where can they find that?
Well, it's all around the place. We could give them a constitution, but the PDP, unlike other parties, we are constantly reviewing our constitution, what consists, what makes up the PDP, because as we deal with different circumstances, different challenges, we adjust, all right? So it's a very dynamic constitution. It's very fluid. It's not cast in a rock and this is it, that's that. It's a very dynamic constitution.
Does a constitution exist?
Yes, this constitution exists.
Okay.
Way back when.
Okay.
2009, 2008, somewhere around there.
Sorry, Chris.
Yes, and also we're seeing a lot of political parties, the PEP, the UNC National Executive Election is constitutionally due. So we're seeing even TPP would have announced internal elections in Tobago. When will be the PDP internal elections? When can we look forward to that?
Well, when the people decide, that's not something for me to say. When the people decide, like I said to you, right, the PDP is a very fluid organization. We are not a regular party, by the way. We're not even a party. We are, what we call it, we are people who believe in a better country, better governance. We don't even want to be classified as political parties and, you know, all that kind of nonsense, right? So we're a bit different. We have meetings and the people say, well, look, based on the level of turbulence and the level of Judases and and different people entering the party and creating bacchanal, let's just hold off for a while, right? We have even suspended, the executive suspended the whole payment. We don't even pay people to join again. That's what has happened. That's what happened for a long while now. You ought to pay, and we say we suspend that, the executive and the, so it's a dynamic organization. Someone asked me, how could you join the PDP? I said, show your support, and that's what we need. You know? Show your support. Not to pay no money, nothing as that.
So we know over the years we have heard a number of allegations concerning political organizations and campaign financing. What's the PDP's position on campaign financing?
I'm trying to figure out what is campaign financing. All right? It could mean so many different things. It could mean a donation. It could mean money to thief and you loot while you're in office. You know? It could mean so many different things. It could mean people buying their way into office, so then contractors buy their way and say, all right, you want to buy a seat here, you want to buy influence, you know? I don't know what it is. But I could say to you, the PDP need financing. And if there's anyone out there who wants to finance the PDP, they can find me and give me some money. We want money. That's what I can say to you. So that's my policy on it. We need some money to run our campaign. And that's all we can say on it.
Do you think the PDP today has this has the pull factor as it did when you first formed it?
Yeah, the PDP is what's in joke, you know. The PDP is what's in joke. Any successful organization is always led by a man who is the embodiment of that thing. And when that man goes, the thing collapses. All right? It just does not be the same. It's like the civil rights movement. There was always a civil rights movement. Even before Martin Luther came on the scene, there was always a civil rights movement. He was just a leader of a southern branch of it. But there's always one. But his fervor, his stir, and his move, he began to embody the movement. And he became the movement. All right? And so the PDP is not a documented philosophy. The PDP is Watson Duke. And I mean that. When we say we are Spartans, the PNM are known as a Red Army. Red Army and nothing. We are PDP Spartan because of my fighting nature, my combative nature.
Does that mean you will only be the only leader of the PDP?
No. What it simply means that I'm the rightful leader. And I am the one who set the trend, set the pace. No organization could rise beyond its leader. Don't you see how all the PNMites operate as their leader? How all the people in TH operate as their leader? People look to leader for leadership. And if you have a wise leader, then people are going to be wise. If you have a leader who is known for successes, the people are going to be successive. So I mean, we don't want to act as if to say that it's a cult. It's not a cult. It's an organization where people follow leadership. That's why leadership is so important in an organization. So when you ask the question about I lost my track a little bit, but the PDP is so strong now as back then that when I walk through Tobago, any place, the ground was raised up. As always the case. When we walk, the ground is raised because this is a man who represents an idea and the embodiment of it, and you all know that. When you come on the scene, the place just light up. It's a different energy. You and all attested to that, Chris, when I said, I am sure the lines are on, I'm sure about that. You didn't say a guess, you know. You didn't ask someone, hey, how much views we are there? You say, Duke, I'm sure the thing blowing up now. Duke Rich.
But Mr. Duke, you know, you have been in this for some time now, and you would have entered the THA at a very important time historically, and that will never be erased. But can you appreciate that in a political party, members exist, registered members, and that the Constitution, it helps keep the organization in its checks and balance so that, well, the members can hold the leadership to account. And so when I asked about the question of internal elections, it wasn't in a way to contest your leadership, but it's in a way to create
I understand you fully, Chris.
A space for other persons if should they be interested.
Yeah, I understand you fully. There's always space for other persons, but not for where leadership is concerned. You know, where leadership is concerned, the idea is quite focused, that this is what the PDP wants to do. Unless the PDP wants to have an about turn in so far as its ambitions and its goals, then this leader is not here. And you can see that clearly when we won the THA, and I gifted it to my colleague, Fali Augustine. I said, I want you to manage this aspect of governance for me. Right? When I recognized that what the PDP was about, which was about the people, feeding the people, look at after our Tobago people, that's what the PDP was about. When I recognized that they were not giving way to that, then I simply said, look, I'm going to leave. Because I must become the embodiment of the PDP people, their hopes and their dreams and what they want. The moment that I cannot fulfill that, I will walk.
You think Tobago still wants the PDP and still wants Watson Duke?
I don't think that. I don't think that. I know that. When you think, you're wondering. I'm not wondering. I know that.
So I know that you want to be Prime Minister. You stated that before. But do you believe that you will have the support of Trinidad and Tobago behind you in any bid to become Prime Minister? And my second part of that question is, why do you want to be Prime Minister?
Well, you have asked a mouthful of questions here. Let me see which one I'm going to attack first. Why do I want to be Prime Minister? When I look at the people who have been Prime Ministers, I think that they did their good, and you must give kudos for that, but they have not transformed Trinidad and Tobago and Trinidad. We are pretty much the same from the colonial days. A few buildings here, a few buildings there, a few promotion here. We have a lot of old-time laws that are irrelevant, still on the books, and are still holding people down. We have not taken on a Trinidad and Tobago personality except when it comes to fetting. See fetting? You know we are Trinidad and Tobago. But insofar as the way we live, no. We don't even exalt culture to the place where it should be. Everything in Trinidad and Tobago is a wine and jigatassa. But how do we take culture and monetize that? How do we monetize culture? Is it culture just calypso, soca? No. How do we monetize that? How do we monetize our social development as a people? Or have we really developed socially? You know, so there's many different aspects that we ought to develop as a country. Our economic, still oil and gas. How have we developed our economy? Trinidad is very still much in its infancy stage. A few new cars doesn't mean that we have developed. We have not catered for the young people. Where do we see ourselves in the next 10 years as a country? They have all of these 2020, 2030 vision, and there is no hallmark towards that. Let me tell you about governance a little bit. You see all this old talk that we have both parties talking about? That's nonsense. I just get sick hearing to them. When you develop a 2030 plan, that is the plan that guides every single budget. Every single budget. Every single one. And in those budgets, you will have hallmarks of achievement, milestones of achievement. So you say this year we are focusing on this. And this year we focus, and no government that comes into existence should be able to change that. Because at the end of 2030, regardless of whoever governs, this is where the country should reach. We had a 2020 vision, we have achieved nothing out of that. Buildings mean nothing. Buildings could go up in a day, and it can be broken down in a day. So if we are dependent on buildings to say that we have matured and we have become advanced and we are a first world country, think again. It is the development of your people and their mental capacity to think outside of the box. Because once you develop people, the entire nation is developed. You could transform this place into so much business that people will shop because you have vision. And that mind, for most of us in Trinidad, is still undeveloped. And we need to develop that. That's why I want to become Prime Minister, so I could help develop the minds of our people and free their explorative skills. Allow them to explore and develop. We must set the agenda. We must know in the next 5 years we need this type of talent here. AI is coming into the world. How much of us are prepared for AI? How much of us are prepared for AI? Since I was a trade unionist and I going around the world and I studying about this whole new employment law, and we understand that people will start working on the platform. No longer man has to come to work. There'll be 0 hours contract. You get paid for what you do. And it's who grab the contract first. The world of work is changing. And we have to adapt our people to make the most out of it. This is what a leader does. Think futuristically and say, look, we are here now. We need to get there by tomorrow.
Well, gentlemen, because of time, I think we're going to have to pause the conversation there. I'd like to say end it, but I believe there's a lot more to be said and a lot more to happen. And Mr. Duke, I want to thank you for coming in to our studio this morning. And I welcome you back to the program soon to continue the conversation.
Yes.
Certainly indeed. Ajay Alain, thank you very much for joining us on AM Prime this morning. Like I said, there's a lot to contribute, so let's just pause it there for now, my friend, and we'll welcome you back soon. Chris, always good seeing you, and thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, take care. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the best part about these conversations. It's where you get to say, hold up, we have more to talk about, so we'll welcome back these 3 gentlemen very soon to continue it. But for now, let's just end it there as we welcome a talking point coming up next here on the station. I'm Keaton Shaw, wishing you a safe day ahead, a productive day, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't